Hey everybody, this is Tyler Dockery, and we're getting back into the swing of things. Unfortunately, with the hurricane slash tropical storm Debbie that moved through, I lost power, and that means I wasn't able to upload materials. So probably doing a 2-for-1 today. As you can see, we're still here in my closet area, and we're trying to see what we can do about getting prepared for the future. Now, school is starting here within about 5 days, roughly, so I'm going to have to clean up this appearance a little bit and get a haircut. Probably try to get some of the green screen out of the attic to cover up all of my nerd accoutrement, but that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Moving into day 5 here, what we're really looking at is what's stopping us, or specifically what's stopping me. So when I look at where I am and where I'm going and what it's going to take to get there, I start to notice that there are things that are holding me back, or items that I would like to achieve that I'm not very good at hitting on. So item number 1 is, what social media or social skills do you want to develop? I am terrible at social media. I could literally care less. Pause for emphasis. I think a lot of the students that I work with are steeped in it, and when we have our classes on social media marketing, I tell them about the social marketing that I do for my clients, and I show them studies if they want to see it. But I think by and large, the content that students are looking for, they already know. The trouble with social media marketing is students often don't care about the social as far as a business is concerned, or they don't know about reputation management as much as they know what they see, which is the getting to know an individual person. But a company like Hasbro, for instance, they're not a person. They don't have a spokesperson. And if they did have a single spokesperson, what would happen when that person moved on? Well, they don't know anything about that. They don't know about trying to come to decisions about how to respond when you make a mistake. As a company, as a person, super easy. As a company or a part of a larger structure, well, that's when things get tough. Socially, one-on-one, I would like to get better at utilizing social media for branding and marketing. I have a lot of non-disclosure agreements with my clients, so I can't talk about any of them specifically. But when it comes to social media, when I personally get on there, I really don't care for what I see. Either it is a bunch of schlock that I don't really care about, or I'm being pushed by an algorithm, and algorithms don't really understand me very well, or it's pictures of my friends' children's or grandchildren that I have never met and literally don't care about. It's nothing personal. If you are one of my friends and you're watching this, I like you, and when we meet in person, I want to hear all about you, but I don't know your children or your grandchildren, and so that's not as exciting to me. A lot of that stuff is really for sharing with close friends, and I only have so many close friends. I have a lot of people in my office and my workplace who have really bang on impressions of me, and those are rather funny. Some of them are flattering, not all of them. But that said, I love all my coworkers. I love the people that I work with, but we're just not super tight. And if we were that kind of super tight friend, we would talk about these things. So social media doesn't really hold much for me, outside of the value of increasing talk. But there was an old show, Super News, that really did a lot about how Twitter was people just shouting into the void, or how the early days of LinkedIn, you didn't really know anybody, but you linked in so that you could all stick together and you would recommend one another if they would recommend you back. It was trying to be something that it didn't really occur to become. So that series of shows is really fantastic. If you ever do find some time to watch Super News, you might find them quite humorous. Within the actual social skills that I would like to develop, it's always kind of a difficult spot, because I'm satisfied where I am getting to know people. Probably getting out a little bit more would be nice. Hobnobbing and rubbing elbows. Like many people who are ones who enjoy video games and role-playing games, I'm not very comfortable in my skin. Like a good refrigerator, I'm about 6'5" and about 260 pounds, and I look like this. So it's difficult to find a place where you're comfortable being around other people. Now, with students and people that I don't meet, the same old jokes are new to them, so it's okay. But that stuff wears on people after a bit. What can I tell you? Usually the connections stay just because I like people, I'm interested in them, I want to see them succeed, I want their welfare, I like them and their humor, and all the things that make people individual and fun to be around. I love that about people. I'm just very socially awkward. What's to be done? Who are my role models? Like, who are your role models, and what stops us from reaching that level of connection? I don't really have any particular role models. I would probably say that if I had to choose who I wanted to be like, I would like to be very much like my friends. The people that I consider to be friends, a lot of them have that certain something that I wish that I had. And by being around them, I can pick up their habits and their ways of doing things sometimes. My very best friend and my wife, like, highly intelligent individuals. My best friend is a polymath. He is a genius at everything that he does. My wife is off the charts, knows how to make the right decisions all the time. I like songs that tell me everything is going to be all right over and over and over again, or ones that make my heart beat. But one thing they always say is don't meet your role models, because we start to see that we have an inflated sense of who they are and what they are. But in fact, I think that only makes them more human, and that's not a bad thing. It's some of the great bands that I like, when we hear the previous singer for Type O Negative, they asked him why he works out. He works out because he's seen some of his rock idols, and they were big, fat, flabby men, and he saw them when they were young and in their prime, and he was just disgusted and never wanted to do that again. I don't really ever find that. I find that many of the people that I look up to are just as smart, just as classy as they've always been. And it's been 20 or 30 years for most of them. I've been married for 25 years. My wife is just as smart, just as beautiful as she was before I dated her, before we got married. I, on the other hand, have a very hard time hearing these days. I'm sure my memory is starting to slip. What can I tell you? I like my role models. I think they're worthwhile. I think you'll like yours too. What are negative thoughts and habits that inhibit my growth? I am a terrible procrastinator. I like putting things off until a later date. In many ways, people will tell you that in education that's a problem, or that's a time suck. But in fact, rather than doing 15 minutes of dishes over and over and over 5 or 6 times a day, doing 1 hour of dishes saves you a lot of time at the end of the day. Doing the least amount required in the shortest amount of time makes you a tangible asset in the workplace. And I've got a story about that. I sat on a board early in my career as an educator, and we had a programming company that asked for 5 students to come and apply for some job openings that they had, and we sent all of our best students out, and they were all rejected. And so when we asked in the meeting later with the client, hey, I'm sorry that didn't work out. Can you tell us what went wrong? We might be able to send another person your way. And he said, the people that you sent us were all terrible, which, like, that just cut me right here, deep in the cockles of my heart. It just cut me. They said the people you sent us were all terrible. We asked them how they would solve a problem with some coding, and they said first they would stop what they were doing and they would set up their calendar. They would have a meeting with their boss to try to get down to brass tacks what every item meant on the schedule. Then they would look and set up a meeting with their team and try to discuss all of the ideas that could come together to make that a success. And then they would go to the production team and talk with the production team about what's the best way to do this set of work so that it would be perfect for the future. Then they set aside a week of their calendar date for doing that work, and then they scheduled a meeting at the end of that week, so about a week and a half to do the project. And he said that typical type of project takes a client, or takes one of our workers, 2 to 4 hours. And almost every single person said that they would take a week and a half, 2 weeks, or in the fastest case, 6 to 7 days to do that project. And they were looking for something in 2 hours. And so they said instead, do you have some students who are C or C plus students that manage to just get the minimum viable product in? Maybe they start their work on the last day and they just hit the minimum requirements in a short period of time. And we found 8 clients from our students who were going to be able to take that, and 6 of those 8 got hired. So it was a really good opportunity. We didn't think we were even going to get 4 of our straight A students in, but we managed to get a ton of our C plus and C minus clients in. The reason is because we never know what somebody else is going to think is perfect, but they know. And so while being a procrastinator is a pain and it inhibits my growth, I often find that I take a slightly larger bite than I can every time. And the positive of that is it helps me to expand a little bit, to really see where my capabilities are. But another portion of that is it allows me to say to myself, I need help. This is the kind of help that I need. I thought it would take this long, but I need that. and it helps me to learn and grow. But if I don't take those opportunities, I won't get those opportunities. So negative thoughts that inhibit my growth are usually ones where I don't think I'm right. Someone's going to figure out that I'm not right for this job. I can't do it. I'm too scared. The worst is usually there's so much to do, I can't even get started. And a job that is started is actually more than halfway done, because all you got to do is keep the ball rolling. Going from no movement to some movement is almost everything that I need to get going. What limiting belief do I have, and why? I would say that a limiting belief that I have is, gosh, that's kind of a tough question. What am I limited in? I'm limited in the fact that I've come to a point where I'm starting to realize there are things that I don't want to do anymore. And that stops a lot of things from happening. Several years ago, I decided I didn't want to pay $400 to have a company come and concrete in the retaining wall that I was going to use for my parking place. And the result of that is that I worked really hard with a good friend of mine to put together the base concrete layer, and it rubbed all the fingerprints off of my hands and left my hands bloody and raw. Which you'd think would really be the end of the story, but several weeks later, when I finally had enough money to finish the job, I came in and did a great portion of that work. And when I did all the work and scraped all the materials and put it all together and got everything set and done, I worked outside with concrete for about 8.5 hours by myself, and I didn't have the proper materials there, and I didn't even think about it. And when my hands started to hurt, I just kept working, and the end result of that was I burned all the skin off of my hands where concrete had gotten inside my fabric gloves. And so I had to go to the North Carolina Burn Center and tell them about what happened, and I had concrete in my nails and on my hands and stuff, and they still seemed to think that I was cooking crystal meth or something to burn myself that badly. But eventually, having the proof was nice to win the day on that one. But in order to save $400, I put myself in a position where my hand is still stiff and some days I can't type. Because I didn't want to spend the money, I injured myself. These days I have a lot of projects because I'm really good at starting a thing. I'm not always really great at going for the long haul. So that kind of limits me. In many cases, when I want something done, I get the feeling it's just going to take a very long time, and I don't even want to get started. Okay, last little bit here is we want to talk about imposter syndrome and how that affects what is seeming to stop us. And what is imposter syndrome? Imposter syndrome is where you feel like you're not right for what you're doing, or you feel like you're fake. When I went to college, after about 2 years of work, I was ready to get out and start making money. I knew everything that I needed. I had everything to be amazing. And by the time I got to the third year when I was in school, I realized I needed to work a lot harder. I didn't have any idea what I was doing. All that previous work was bravado. And by the time I got to my fourth year in college, I was so scared about leaving school that I was really, really worried that I would have to, give up on my dreams and become a failure, which sounds like a conscious choice. But many times as a teacher, in the very first classes that I taught, I was moving back and forth and hiding behind podiums and computers because I thought if I sat still for long enough, students would zero in on the idea that I was just like them, and they would say, what kind of education is this? If I quit school and went and worked in the field for 7 or 8 years and then came back here, I would know just as much about this stuff as you know after 10 years of working in the field. But I could answer all their questions. It was amazing. So imposter syndrome is a very real thing, and we have a lot of students in the community college where I teach that are scared and nervous that someone's going to find out. Yes, they've got drawing and illustration and photography and social media marketing and Photoshop Illustrator, InDesign and Canva and Premiere and After Effects, HTML, HTML5, CSS3, a little bit of PHP work, and dealing with CMS systems, dealing with content systems like WordPress or Drupal, and marketing, print materials, client media relations, contracts. They've got strong portfolios. They know how to do everything under the sun that we can possibly teach them in 2 years. And they're still scared. They think someone's going to out them as not being able to do their work. Imposter syndrome is a real thing. It's super easy for me to tell them over and over and over again, you've already beaten it. But it's up here. It's not something somebody can tell you. You just have to kick your way out through the other side. I wish there was easier stuff. Down in the doobly-doo below, I'm going to go ahead and give you a link to Raj Solo, who is the gentleman who helped me to get on this path. And I am also going to include a shortened link on how to get to my 30-day list here. You can have it, just use it, go start making your videos today. Enjoy it. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to I don't even have to know that you're using it. A lot of people out there are trying to get you to buy this list. Just take this and use it for free. Again, I'm not really built for making myself terribly wealthy with this method. Please go and enjoy this. If you liked this content, give it a thumbs up. Think about subscribing so you'll know when I do the next couple of pieces along the line. Hey, if I sucked, give me a thumbs down and tell me why. Tell me in the comments what I'm screwing up so I can do better. I appreciate it. Please have a great week. Help me through this journey, and thank you so very much. Y'all take it easy.